Hey everybody, this is Dan.
And this is Ron.
This is a nominee questionable movies special in person, lots of hoops to jump through COVID episode.
Yeah, we're actually in the same room at the same time.
Yeah, it's like this is like pinch me material. And so for this very special episode, you might be noticing a pattern, regular listeners. We have a lot of very special episodes.
Every episode is a special episode.
It's a formula that works,
Yeah.
I think, but but this one we have 25% more special this episode. We're going to cover the generational gap. We watched two Gen X movies because I have been fascinated by Gen X for a long time, and Ron is actually part of Gen X.
I have been Gen X for a very long time.
Yeah, he's part of the X Project, and he.
Oh God, I hope not.
That's where he got all his adamantium boniness.
By cutting out the brains of chimpanzees. Oh wait, was that?
Or no, I'm thinking of the Weapon X Project.
Oh! I'm thinking of the Broderick movie from the '80s with medical experiments and stuff on chimpanzees. Isn't that Project X?
I don't think I ever saw that.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Uh,
Was that like he did that around War Games?
a little after War Games?
Okay. Yeah, he took some interesting roles earlier in his career.
Yeah.
But,
Before he became an action star.
right.
Was
Right,
he
with
ever?
Godzilla.
Was he ever? Oh yeah. Okay. I guess he was in a sort of action
Yeah.
movie.
He's like, and then they had what's his face? Bryan Cranston played that role in the most recent Godzilla, which, oh my god, I love that movie. The 2016 U.S. Godzilla. It's just like a bunch of Hieronymus Bosch paintings in 3D. And then, like, I mean, granted, the people are the worst part of that movie. They do not do anything useful with any of the people actors. But you don't need people. You just need, like,
CGI.
like destroyed landscapes and occasional glimpses of Godzilla. There you got your movie, and this is the closest we've gotten to a pure Godzilla movie, which for me would be all landscape shots, just like devastated landscape shots, like Chantal Ackerman's Dast, plus like those things in SimCity where you can just put the monster on your city and just stomp on everything.
Speaking of, the two movies that we watched were, well, we watched Clerks, which we both seen numerous times. But the speaking of reason is that we also suffered through Reality Bites. In fact, we watched Reality Bites hoping that it would actually possibly might be better than we both felt the first time around. And then we washed out the taste with Clerks.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see because they're like not entirely dissimilar movies in terms of what they're focused on. Like, they're both movies that are ostensibly about class relations. Just one of them is like much better and takes place in a convenience store, and the other one is Reality Bites. And
So both came out in 1984. Clerks was Kevin Smith's first film, indie film made for something like $27,000. Some credit card money, some FEMA money,
selling comic books.
Selling his comic book collection. And Reality Bites was made by Ben Stiller, who already had his own TV show, and a bunch of other famous actors at that point. Julian Garofalo, Ethan Hawke, Steve Zahn.
You'd think that Bob Odenkirk would have shown up for a minute or two, and that might have been the best part of the movie.
Yeah, it might have had a good part in the movie. But... So you want to talk and explain what Reality Bites was about?
Yeah, so Reality Bites is Ben Stiller's first feature directing credit that I'm aware of. He just finished the Ben Stiller show, which was on for 13 episodes, I believe, on Fox, at the same time as On the Edge was on, and that's where most of the people in Mr. Show ended up going. Instead of going on to Mr. Show, Ben Stiller decided to direct, and did he write the movie or did somebody else write the movie?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter, yeah. So he
It's too much effort to go and look it up.
he directs this movie called Reality Bites. It's supposed to be the defining like Gen X movie, the way that The Graduate was supposed to be the defining '60s youth culture movie, or Xanadu was trying to define the '80s in 1980.
And to a lot of people, it was and still is the defining movie of the era.
Right, like this and Singles get pointed out a lot.
Singles?
The Cameron Crowe movie.
Oh, right, yeah.
In Seattle.
Yeah.
But so we have Winona Ryder, and I think this was probably like one of the commercial peaks of her career. I think like she was super popular in the early '90s. She was in a lot of movies.
Yeah, but she was also in let's see, Heathers.
Heathers was a while before that though. She was in a version of Little Women. She was in shit. What else was she in?
Okay, the Johnny Depp movie, Edward Scissorhands.
She was in Edward Scissorhands.
She was in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
She was the big indie star.
She was like an it girl back then, kind of.
Yeah.
And anyway, so she's like the in between of a bunch of Gen X cultural extremes. We have Steve Zahn, who they strongly hint he's gay, and then kind of forget that he exists in the movie.
And then suddenly he comes out, and then they forget again that he exists.
Right. And you have Ethan Hawke, who's like broke, and his dad's dying. That happens to everybody. Ethan Hawke, it's going to be okay. But
he's sarcastic. He's bitter.
He's a dick. He apparently reads a lot, but all we ever see him do is be a dick.
He performs in a band, although we see that for about like all of 2 minutes, spread out over the movie.
It's always interesting to me in movies how they try to, like, at least half the time they imply that if somebody's read a lot, it's not, they don't have books in their surroundings. It's always through the dialogue. Not all the time, but a lot of movies. Okay, so we got Ethan Hawke, we got Ben Stiller, who works at like this broad parody of MTV called It's in Your Face or something like that.
Something else I could look up. Oh,
Stomp on Your Face or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she starts dating the Ben Stiller guy.
Wait. Oh. You left out Janine Garofalo.
Oh, Janine Garofalo.
Who was in
gets
everything
AIDS
as well.
At some point.
Well, she doesn't, but yeah, there's an AIDS scare.
Oh, there's an AIDS. Oh, yeah, because she doesn't even have AIDS at the end of it. She just gives that whole monologue about
being afraid of. She gets tested, and then she's waiting a bit for the test, because back in the day, it took a little bit. Took a little time, a few days or a week. I don't remember how long.
Right, as opposed to now, where like most tests that you want to get take like 3 days to a week.
Well, not even that. No. Here you get the prick, and you get the next, like, the pinprick to get the blood, and then you get the results back. I think the next day.
Oh, I was making a COVID joke.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But no, I mean, happily now that apparently the state of AIDS is better than the state of COVID-19 testing.
Yeah, it's a manageable disease, but at the time it wasn't. It was scary. It was seen as a not a death threat. What's the word I'm trying to think?
Death sentence.
As a death sentence. Thank you. But so she's promiscuous.
Yeah.
And then eventually she gets tested. Is that everyone?
Do we meet Winona Ryder's parents at some point? Yeah, because they're rich.
Yeah, Winona Ryder's parents are rich, but she wants to she wants to make it on her own.
Yeah. Because she's a plucky young 20-something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the most entertaining part of the movie for me, we watched it on a VHS Oscar screener, was any time that it said at the bottom, this tape cannot be copied or redistributed. Because it just sort of... Whatever it was about that, it just hit this very pleasing counterpoint to whatever was going on in the movie, and just kind of heightened it a little bit for me.
It was the most exciting part of the movie,
basically. Yeah, we have like a bunch of like 90s cliches. You can see the worst parts of American Beauty in this movie in embryo. You have like the title of the movie is Winona Ryder kind of just makes home videos of her friends and calls them quote unquote reality bites.
Ah, get it? It's like the name of the
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
And she sells them to Ben Stiller, who is like, the executive guy, and they make this cut of it that's probably the funniest part of the movie, because I think that was always Stiller's talents lie in like broad parody kind of stuff. That's why like Tropic Thunder generally works better than this movie. And also like the high point of his career for my money, the Ben Stiller show, where he's just doing commercial parodies and stuff like that.
I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff and famous and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was a good thing.
Like what I want is not what Ben Stiller's bank account wants for sure. But
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, they're dating.
right, they're dating. They're doing
Not all of them together,
and
but
like most of the time,
wait.
see
Winona Ryder and Ben Stiller are dating.
Yeah. Because he's every. It's always weird when you have an actor's first like feature as a writer director, or where they have casting privileges. And I mean, there's good things that come out of that,
Out of what?
like an actor directing for the first time.
Oh,
But
okay.
it seems like a lot of the time it's just sort of like, let's imagine my dream date and get like Fox Searchlight to pay for it. Like the worst example that I can think of is Garden State, right? Like Garden State is just Zach Braff putting himself on a great date, like a fictional good date for like an hour and a half, and then he like bitches about medication for a little bit.
Right. Who's his date in the
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. Okay. Actually, so very
If you buy
similarly,
the Shins record, it will change your life.
and very similarly, Zach Braff has the wonderful opportunity to go out on a date with Natalie Portman. Here, Ben Stiller has the wonderful opportunity to go out with Winona Ryder. It's not the reverse.
Right.
Yeah, the reverse side is not a wonderful opportunity. So they're so lucky. They are so lucky to be going out with Natalie Portman and Winona Ryder.
Yeah, like Zach Braff is just sort of like, I'm not just that dude from Scrubs. I can, or like, well, no, okay. The worst example of that is Vincent Gallo, the Brown Bunny.
Oh God, let's not even get into that. Okay, I realize
that's like it gets creepy quick, right? Or like any of those Woody Allen movies where he's like 70, and it's like, oh man, this 25-year-old woman falls in love with me because we end up in wacky old timer hijinks.
Yeah. We have so many examples of stuff within the genre.
Right.
And so many ways we can get,
That's
to
another
go
show.
further down before we get to the Brown Bunny. Yeah,
Right.
nothing should take us there.
The Brown. I think that was my favorite Roger Ebert quote of all time. Like when Vincent Gallo was like, "You're a fat fuck who doesn't understand movies," and he's like, "I may someday be skinny, but the Brown Bunny will always be a terrible movie." And well, that
Yeah.
also goes in a tragic direction. But anyway, so we're talking about Ben Stiller casting reality bites, and I think like he gets a lot of faces that seem like very stereotypically 90s to me. Like there's a lot of like I think when we were watching the movie I kept remarking that all the characters and plot lines seem like the average of a bunch of other characters or plot lines.
Mm.
Like they seem like there's a lot of abstract signifiers, like these are people in the 90s, up
Right.
to and including like a very disposable grunge soundtrack.
And just to be clear, we're talking about people. We're talking about people in their 20s
Mm-mm.
in the 1990s. They have parents, but it's about the 20-year-old, the 20-somethings in the 90s. In the same way that, well, Garden State isn't about the people in their 20s, isn't it? Close enough.
Yeah, it's people
whatever.
in their 20s in the 2000s,
effectively,
right? Because
yeah.
everybody, you have all these kids that were given Ritalin when they were younger, and they're like
Yeah.
starting to question.
Right.
You have
right.
like early anti-vaxxer sentiments in Garden State.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so you're saying this is an average of all these are average people in their 20s in the 90s.
Yeah, and
Is that
it's
right?
like it's so incredibly abstract about how they're average, and it felt like there's more anthropological value in this movie than there is value as a movie.
And there's very little anthropological value at that.
It's sort of like
I remember not enjoying this movie when it first came out, and everyone around me thinking it's great, and the way it represented them. I shouldn't use the word represented, but whatever. The way it represented them, or the way they connected, the way they identified with people on the screen, and all that. And I just thought it was not only not that funny, which it's supposed to kind of be, and not that realistic, which it's supposed to kind of be. But also, so there's the whole thing with the Winona Ryder and the Ethan Hawke character. Will they? Won't they? Will they? Won't they? She is dating Ben Stiller, who is supposed to be sort of the antithesis to the rest. He's a yuppie. He's not quite as smart as Ethan Hawke. He's not as erudite. But he treats Winona Ryder so much better. He cares for
mm,
her. His intentions are definitely there. Ethan Hawke treats her terribly, is a complete jerk to her for most of the movie. We're supposed to at one point think, oh, well, he does this because he's afraid to tell her how he really feels, to tell her that he loves her. But that doesn't excuse him being such a major jerk. And I think, as you're pointing out, is that he was negging her before we had the word
yeah, he
negging.
was totally nagging her, and like I think the telltale scene is the kind of meet cute between Ben Stiller and Winona Ryder is she she's in his office. I think they meet before that for a little bit, but like the first
Well,
time we see them talking,
she runs her car into his.
right, and he uh he has a Dr. Zaius from the Planet of the Apes figurine on his desk. She knocks it over and it cracks like it's made out of ceramic, which is kind of uh, that would probably have been a Mego doll or made out of plastic, so knocking it on the floor really wouldn't do anything. I'm pretty sure, unless I mean maybe they made like ceramic figurines of Doctor Zaius too, but
Oh, I had a figurine of Gort from
and it was ceramic.
yeah, and it fell
Oh,
and broke.
okay.
It was at my office. It was a mistake to do that.
Oh, okay. I guess that I just gave away that I'm not actually Gen X
Yeah,
because I guess that was one of the correct anthropological details, at least from Ron's life.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
did you go on a date with Winona Ryder after you dropped your Planet of the Apes figurine?
sadly, no. Gort's not from. Oh, okay. Sorry. No, I did not. Nor did Ben Stiller grow up. Wait, this is all backwards. Wait, Winona Ryder did not drop my Gort figurine. I dropped it. It was coworkers were around. It was very, very sad. It was very sad, and I didn't get a Winona Ryder in the process.
And so I guess the
Nor did I
more
get an Ethan Hawke or a Ben Stiller. And if I'd gotten a Ben Stiller as the booby prize, I would have been quite content with that, quite happy. Ethan Hawke, at least not in this movie. I'm glad that that never happened.
oh yeah. And I guess the moral of this whole story is that if she had knocked over Ethan Hawke's Doctor Zaius figurine, he would have asked for pity sex, and so that's the difference between Ben Stiller and Ethan Hawke in this movie. Like Ethan Hawke, Ben Stiller's making this really weird point about like women entering shitty relationships with like broke whiny dudes because it gives them quote unquote more freedom, or at least that's the best I could read it. Because like the whole like Ben Stiller's character's big faux pas with her isn't like asking for pity sex or like nagging her. It's just sort of like he did a bad cut of her little home movie things.
And he didn't even do the bad cut. It
Right.
was the executives that did that. And
I
he was
thought you
doing-
would defend my vision. You know, it's like, how the hell is he supposed to know what her vision is? He's just like doing her a favor because he feels bad for her because she like fucking broke his doctor or his like Planet
No.
of the Apes shit.
No, I think he did understand her vision, and that's why he pitched it to the network executives. He didn't know that they were screwing it up. He saw it the first time, the same time she did. Right, and he kept
Oh,
like,
okay,
oh well,
right.
and he was being a little bit apologetic for them, and then he finally was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I had no idea.
As you can tell, I was like deeply immersed in this movie.
Yeah.
I
Apparently.
really was
Wow, I was more
out
into
in
it than you were.
space. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. But I mean,
Well,
I guess I wasn't like paying a lot. I was paying a lot of attention to the clothes in the rooms,
okay.
which is like a thing I tend to do when I'm stoned. Like I remember one of the first times I ever got stoned, I saw Scott Pilgrim versus the Universe or whatever it was called,
Uh-huh.
and like the entire time I was just like, wow, that looks like so many basements I went in until like roughly the age I was 7.
Uh-huh.
I could not tell you a thing that happened in that movie, but I could like picture photographically like the basement in it.
Sort of like you didn't remember that Ben Stiller and Winona Ryder met when she rear-ended him
Yeah,
and
yeah.
jumped straight to the doctor's ass. Yeah. Well, and in fact, the rear-ending, Ben Stiller ended up apologizing or feeling bad for Winona Ryder. She's the one that rear-ended him, and she
Right.
rear-ended him because didn't Janine Garofalo or Winona Ryder, one of them threw a lit cigarette stub into
His car. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like such a dick move. Although that's kind of like bad driving or like irresponsible things in cars being correlated with like unlikely romance in movies. That's the thing that pisses me off about Harold and Maude.
Uh-huh.
Or pisses me off. God, I sound like one of those AM radio people.
I hate Intergen.
Old ladies, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but like the way that she's like driving around so cavalierly at the beginning of that movie,
Uh-huh.
and like I don't know, I just like the family business's traffic accident reconstruction. So I'm watching the first half of that movie, and I'm like, oh my god, this woman needs to be locked up for the safety of every person who lives in that town. And like I just couldn't like her for the rest of the movie, and so like I had a roommate, and that was like her favorite movie of all time, and I like at the end of it, I was just like.
Get out.
No, I wasn't like kidding. No, I just couldn't quite. I just did not like Maud in that movie because she does not respect the laws of the road.
Oh, you're talking about. Sorry, you're talking about Harold and Maude. I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about Winona Ryder and stuff.
Oh, Winona
yeah,
Ryder in this. I mean, she's likable enough. You know, she's like she's a mild presence.
Yeah, she owns a video
She's
camera.
there. Yeah, she has a video camera, and like she
She doesn't use it in very interesting ways, but
She's-
you know,
she's got a hair
Typical.
dryer.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
she's cute.
like, yeah, you know, I mean, it's an easy movie to look at.
She puts up with Ethan Hawke, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, she deserves a Nobel for that.
Yeah.
Like the ending where he's just like playing songs. Aren't they in Ben Stiller's apartment?
No,
No,
it's
okay,
their
no,
apartment.
it's
Oh
their
my god,
apartment,
no,
okay.
they're not that cruel.
Yeah, she's just sort of like living. I guess it's like a happy version of the sort of random, like unprepared life narrative that you see in something like Muchet or like Out of the Blue or sort of, she doesn't seem to be living very deliberately, right? And where was I going with that?
So then there's Janine Garofalo.
Then there's Janine Garofalo, and she has the only part of this movie I remembered the first time I watched it because I had it on the background when I was cleaning.
The AIDS scare.
Well, she's like sitting at the diner, and she's like, you know, there's going to be an episode of Sesame Street. There's going to be a Muppet with AIDS, and I'm going to be the AIDS Muppet, you know? I'm not going to be Janine Garofalo of television's Mr. Show. I'm going to be the AIDS Muppet.
And then the next scene, she gets the results, and I don't know, isn't she dancing because the test came back negative?
Yeah, she's
I don't know.
dancing because the test came back negative, and then suspiciously Steve Zahn barely shows up for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, Steve Zahn has little tiny brief appearances later, and it's hinted that he's gay very early on in the movie. It is totally not addressed for most of the movie, and then suddenly we see the video of him sitting outside his house getting ready to tell his mom that he came out. He's kind of nervously excited about it. Cut. Now we see the video. I guess it's Winona Ryder on the videotape saying that it did not go well. And then we don't see him again until later on. Briefly, somebody walks into a diner, and we see that Steve Zahn is sitting next to another guy. and then we see the tops of their heads. And we see the other guy's face briefly. We see Steve Zahn's face briefly, and I don't know if that's
Right.
supposed to be a date or what, or hinting at it. But that's pretty much Steve Zahn. Of course, it
Mm.
begins with the first time that we see any interaction with Steve Zahn is Janine Garofalo makes a homophobic joke, which is
Mm.
supposed to be her way of connecting and saying, "Hey, it's cool that you're gay," but no,
Mm.
it's homophobic. Um, but yeah, so that's it for Steve
Hey,
Zahn.
Steve, I heard you failed the hot dog test.
But
It's the 90s.
uh,
It's the 90s.
yeah, what is the joke? Oh, it's the reverse of if they could put a man on the moon, they could put a man on you, saying it to a lesbian. So it's the gay version of that. But
Oh, I never heard the Man on the Moon thing.
really,
Is that like
hey,
is that just like in
have you never
is
heard
that
that?
like common?
Yeah, singing about lesbians. If they could put a man on the moon, they could put a man on you.
No,
Oh
I
wow, I
guess you can
taught you.
teach an old dog new tricks. I've
Oh
never
wow.
heard that one.
Yeah, please forget that trick. I don't even remember what her version was to him, but it was the exact same thing. Um, so yeah, so that's Steve Zahn in this. What else?
If you can go gay for men, you can go gay for Janine Garofalo. Come on, boys. um,
So yeah, this was well, it wasn't so much a hate watch.
it was a hate watch.
All right, it was a hate
I
watch.
don't know. You
I
don't
was,
really like this movie. Stan doesn't really like this movie. I don't really like this movie, but it's like so fun to fucking hate on.
well, I was hoping that I was giving it a second chance. I was
Uh,
wondering if maybe after 25 years, I'll actually appreciate it this time around. That I'll actually think, hey, that's pretty good. And that for some reason I just despised it. And no, I despised it because it's a bad movie. It's shallow. Um, and I still don't understand why so many people connect and relate to it and think that that's the defining movie of Gen X in the 90s. It is not. It is not.
and so does that set up our next movie pretty
It
well?
does, because this movie is one of the three that is the defining movies of the 90s, of Gen X in the 90s, which I've said before are Clerks, Heathers, and Slacker. That's Richard Linklater's Slacker, singular. If you see those three movies, you understand Gen X.
Mm.
Do we need
And
to explain what Clerks is? Clerks is two guys in a convenience store.
yeah, two guys in a convenience store. They have a very eventful day. There's some death. There's some hockey. There's a lot of talk about gum and cigarettes and blowjobs.
There are girlfriends, and best of all, there are two guys dealing weed and other drugs outside, Jay and Silent Bob, who actually go on to have a career as Jay and Silent Bob. The characters go on to have a career. So does Kevin Smith, the director. He
Right.
goes on to make a bunch of movies.
I mean, it's a very autobiographical movie, but not like strictly tied to notions of realism. Like he shoots it in a realist way, but fantastical events can happen. Like these guys can act the way that they act in the store without like Randall would get fired in a real video store
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
quickly, I think, or like
Although apparently, so it's based on his experience working at a convenience store next to a video store, or maybe both of them in a convenience store. I don't know. With him and Brian Johnson. If you watch Comic Book Men, you are familiar with Brian Johnson, the big guy with the huge beard. So at the time, he didn't have that huge beard. But yeah, the character of Dante is more or less based on Kevin Smith, and the character of Randall is more or less based on Brian Johnson. So it's autobiographical in that respect.
and then he remade the movie as another semi-autobiographical movie. Zach and Miri make a porno, which is very much about the making of Clerks. No, he said that before.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. It's like it's a movie about right because they're making their first porno movie and they're figuring out how to do the financing and getting the cast and they're finding these wacky characters
Oh yeah, okay.
and
No, that totally makes sense.
so it's almost like well, it's not an auto remake because like Clerks is not about the making of Clerks.
Right.
There's also another fictional movie called Making Clerks, which is about making Clerks, which does not involve Kevin Smith. I think it's called Making Clerks or something like that. But anyway,
The one that's still in post production, or the
is
oh
that
no, the
done
other
yet,
one.
or no? You
Oh
would
wait,
know better than I would. I thought it came out, but I'm not 100% sure.
well, there's one that there was a screening of it, and you actually see the screening in Comic Book Men, but it's actually still in post production, and they've been having some issues. Or not issues. Well, yeah, issues. They've been working on financing and distribution and all that stuff, and it's a couple of folks who have they're not exactly wealthy. This isn't their
Hmm.
main job. They've got families, and then they were getting actually pretty close. It started. They had a Kickstarter Indiegogo campaign or something like that. I was involved with it. That's how
Hmm.
I know. And by involved, I mean you know,
He
I
ponied
bought.
up.
I ponied up. So I get the updates, and when I say regular updates, at this point it's like once every 6 months or a year, or even less frequently. But they were very close, and then the pandemic hit.
Mm.
So the pandemic has really gotten in the way. But hopefully it'll be coming out soon.
Seems like the kind of thing where you'd want to sell it to a streaming service, probably, if you could get a good deal.
Yeah, that would
Because
totally
I,
make
I don't
sense.
know how well it would do. Like, you could still do a few theater screens, but I don't know how well that would do in wide release. That seems like the kind of thing that's, like, tailor made for streaming kind of stuff.
Yeah, streaming would be great. I'd buy
Uh,
that for $1.
but yeah, so in Clerks, we see a lot of the same themes and kind of obsessions of reality bites, but we see them in a much more realistic class lens. I think that's like the huge difference. Also, the fact that the jokes are funny and the script coheres. But
It's a clever script with great
it's a
dialogue.
great script.
Which is Kevin Smith is most known for. Of anything, his strongest suit is dialogue.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the later movies, the dialogue predominates to the point. Like, I feel like this is a very tightly structured movie. It has a point. It comes to that point. It uses the various gags throughout the movie to contribute, expand upon, or work up towards the point of the end of the movie, which is sort of like the end of Candide, right? Like, he keeps imagining something better, and Randall is sort of saying, like, embrace the present, embrace, like, the your own surroundings and circumstances. And Silent Bob kind of reiterates that later in the movie when Dante's having, like, this existential crisis because his girlfriend sucked 36 dicks.
37.
37 dicks, right? And
That's one of the jokes. Is
I
the
was setting you up,
36,
yeah.
37. Yeah. Oh, okay, okay.
You took the bait.
I took the bait. All right,
But,
great.
but yeah, and so he's like, a lot of women suck dicks, but not all of them make you lasagna in the middle of the day. That's not the actual line. He wrote a better line than that. But
No, something like not many girlfriends will make you lasagna. Most of them just cheat on you.
oh yeah, that's so much
Yeah.
better than what I.
Which is the part of
Most
the.
women suck 37 dicks, but not all of them make a good lasagna. Knit that on a pillow, mother. Right? Like, but yeah, so there's a lot of kind of anxiety about staying at one station in life. You can see a lot of Smith's kind of anxieties about making this huge gamble on the movie or in the movie. Like when Randall, one of the major points in the movie for me is when Randall says something to Dante along the lines about like his Dante's infatuation with his ex girlfriend. You're the one making all these problems. You're the one making your own destiny shitty. Like, there's a million other shitty jobs around here.
Right.
And Randall is definitely, like, he's a figure of class antagonism, I think, in a way that's a lot more sincere than kind of Winona Ryder's being like, I want the final cut on my home movies when they show on MTV kind of stunt.
Mm-hmm.
Randall is kind of seeing that he doesn't have bright prospects in the job market, and he's essentially creating work slowdowns. And what he's explaining to Dante is essentially that Dante has this incredible bargaining power that he doesn't realize because the bosses are stuck with people who give as few shits about their jobs as Randall or Dante. So you're kind of stuck between you can get away with more than you think you can, which is like kind of a neutered call to class warfare. And
Wow, we
then,
took such different things out of it. I thought Randall was telling Dante, "Stop complaining about your shitty job. If you want something better than this, go do it."
that is what he's saying, but like
Oh,
in the
okay.
larger context of the movie, like we spend so much time, like most movies, like Reality Bites, we see the people at their jobs, we know they have jobs. The actualities of work, which is what most people in Gen X and many other generations spend their day doing, is if they're at work, we only ever see them at work if something important to their personal lives is going on. In Clerks, work is seen as almost the single defining reality of life.
Yep. It doesn't get any better than this. I'm just
Right.
gonna keep trudging at my job. I can complain, but this is as good as it gets. I
Right, and
don't.
it's
I
like
don't.
not
I
taking
don't.
downward mobility quite so
I don't deserve any
cheerfully.
better.
Yeah. And
Randall is saying you do deserve better if you want. Well, not you deserve better. You can get better, but Well, anyways, I don't know.
well, I think Randall's a really powerful character because he's not just saying like go out what you want and take it. He's such a an ambiguous figure because he's incredibly irresponsible in terms of like Dante's feeling that he can never get ahead in life and that he's going to be stuck in this Kafkaesque existence of paying for other people's mistakes. The film does reinforce that at a few points. Like the one that's really coming to mind is when we see Randall sell a pack of cigarettes to a 4 year old girl because he doesn't look up from his magazine, and then Dante gets hit with the bill for it.
Yeah, it was like a $500 fine
Right,
that he's not allowed to fight.
right. And
Then when he tells Randall about this, and Randall says, "Oh, her," so he actually did know what was going on.
right.
He was just not he was just kind of ignoring it and just going through the motions, or doing it intentionally. I don't know.
Right, Randall is like one of the major, like Savoy Zizek in first his tragedy, then his farce. He spends a long time talking about. In late stage capitalism, you have a lot of people who are kind of in this state of kind of cognitive dissonance, like collective cognitive dissonance, in that they do not believe in the sustainability or validity of the system they are in, but they are trapped in it and have to kind of echo the beliefs and premises of that system. And so Randall is like post-capitalist. Randall um, essentially sees everything as this big ride. There's sort of like he chooses to keep reality at a distance,
Mm.
um, and that's definitely like this sort of Zen rebellion against jobs and the kind of minutia of capitalism is definitely a frequent theme of like Gen X movies, I think.
Wait, how do you keep reality at a distance and embrace the present at the same time?
Well, so he does it so that basically he's not emotionally reacting to anything, right? Like Randall doesn't have a wide emotional range.
Right.
And so I think he's able to say like bleaker things or things that are less comfortable to kind of process uh, because of the fact that he's not feeling emotionally. Like anytime that Dante gets a new piece of information, he's just sort of like, oh my god,
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
right. And Randall's just sort of taking the present as it comes and, making intermittent jokes about it.
Okay. So, final conclusion: Clerks good, Reality Bites bad. Nothing has changed over the last 25 years.
Yeah, I think Clerks has gotten better. Because
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger and I saw it, I was like, oh, this is kind of dumb, but this is funny. And then now I kind of get, like, okay, there's some deep shit going on in that movie.
Yeah. I mean, it still totally resonates with me. Class stuff and like the specific kind of work and the specific kind of work I want to say prospects. Well, the kind of work and
Well, yeah, because like '90s
is.
Gen X stuff, it's all about selling downward mobility as a choice,
Mhm.
because that's like the first generation where they're not going to do as well as their boomer parents.
Right. Well, he's got his girlfriends are presenting upward mobility as an option, but it doesn't seem that way
Hmm.
to him. It doesn't seem as a possibility. He's got these little, people kind of dancing around telling him, "No, no, you can't do better. You can't do better. You gotta." And he's like, "I don't see it. I don't see any choice but to go down."
And
Um,
it's also it's one of the greatest towny movies ever made.
mm,
Like it's about people that live in this very small physical space, and their entire reality revolves around like
mm,
these 3 blocks in New Jersey.
yeah, but just to finish my point, I'm saying about at least the way it resonates for me
Mm.
is that nothing has changed. I may have, let's say, moved up, as it were, and but it's still to me. I have there's no way to go but down. I have to keep I have to keep paddling in order to keep from drowning.
Mm.
I have to keep paddling upstream, or else I'm gonna be taken downstream. There is no other option. So I'm not actually trying to paddle in order to go further upstream. It's to keep from falling down further. And in
Mm.
that way, Clerk still totally resonates, and I totally understand Dante. Uh,
Yeah, and I think Clerks is one of those movies that crosses the millennial Gen X divide, insofar as like I think a lot of millennials saw this when they were fairly young, because Smith has like that large cult following, especially at least in northeastern United States. Like Kevin Smith was huge at the school I went to. If I talked to the townies, they'd all seen Clerks or Mallrats or both.
or probably more mall rats than Clerks, right?
Mm. Uh, you could get both of them pretty easily at the video rental store, and it
No,
wasn't at the library.
but in terms of what were people exposed to most, or what do people
I think
watch
more
first?
people saw
You
Clerks
think so? Okay.
when, at least anecdotally from conversations I've had with people,
Because you told me about Mallrats being
it
on
was on
TV
TV
played
a
constantly.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that doesn't mean that anybody thought it was any good, because like that was also they would show like fucking Pauly Shore Biodome like 5 times a day.
But it's what people were watching.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's probably people who've definitely seen Mallrats and have not seen Clerks.
Well, one of my favorite things at work was leaving a meeting, um, uh, and as I'm walking out the door, and two of the other people leaving, and there's at least a 10-year age gap between me and them, probably 15. So you've got Gen X, the millennial, and hearing one of them bring up Mallrats and the other one saying, "Oh yeah, that's a classic." And it was music to my ears, because even though I think it's a terrible movie and it was a terrible follow up to Clerks, at least they called a Kevin Smith movie a classic. And then I mentioned
Yeah.
Clerks to them, and they didn't know what I was
Well,
talking
Clerks is
about.
a great movie.
No, no, but they didn't
But
know what I was
yeah,
talking about. They didn't know what Clerks was.
I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where people didn't know what Citizen Kane was in the last 5 years. Like it's weird.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like whatever's not on those streaming services goes down the memory hole.
Yeah, yeah.
And so another interesting contrast between Reality Bites and Clerks that just came to me is Reality Bites. There's a lot of stuff about guilt over parents or lack thereof, right? Like Ethan Hawke's shitty behavior is justified by the movie by the fact that his dad's like dying of something, uh, and like Winona Ryder, her great struggle is like, am I actually authentic because my dad bought me a BMW?
Mm-hmm.
And in Clerks, it's almost as if these people have no parents. Like Jay and Silent Bob, almost literally, like it's very hard to imagine them actually having parents. And we never hear any mention of these people having parents. Uh, we kind of, they're just sort of in their own universe. And the closest thing you get to an actual boomer presence in the movie is like old people that come into the store, or the never seen owner of the store. Like even in the cartoon show, we never meet the actual owner of the Quick Stop.
Uh-huh.
And so it's sort of
It's just about them.
it's just about them, and I think that underscores the kind of like free will versus determinism in the form of Randall and Dante
Yeah.
dynamic that kind of defines what happens in the film and how it goes.
It's not about them in contrast to another generation
Hmm.
and their conflict with another generation. I mean, the conflict with the older generation isn't. It's not played out a lot in Reality Bites, but it's there.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I
important.
think it's played out quite a because like Ben Stiller's character, he has that whole monologue about like, well, you know, I don't believe in any of this shit, but I got to do it to make a living. The Doctor Zaius figurine would have been, I mean, it's Gen X like kitsch nostalgia, but it's also older than the stuff that's in Ethan Hawke's apartment.
Not true.
No, okay.
They have a metal. They have a metal lunchbox.
Oh wait, you're right. You're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess '90s was a lot about it. Like, in my view, the defining documents of the '90s, as best as I understand it, are like the first 30 issues, or what, the only 30 issues of Hate by Peter Bagg, and like Clerks, basically. I think are the two major defining. And yeah, like the way that Hate ends is basically Buddy Bradley figures out he's unemployable and figures out that he can resell retro kitsch objects
Uh-huh.
like Dukes of Hazard lunchboxes and stuff.
And there's a class distinction because Ben Stiller is a yuppie. Ethan Hawke refers to him as such, and
Right, and I
derisively.
guess like when Ben Stiller was talking and he was trying to describe his job, it sounded a lot like I'm embracing boomer ethics and cultural things, but I don't believe in them.
Yeah.
So I represent a third way between being an unemployed rock star, or rock. I'm making big air quotes here around rock star.
Well, I didn't hear it as him embracing boomer culture per se, but embracing making a living. Because Winona Ryder is saying, "I'm going to make it on my own," and he's like, I want a comfortable life so I can do the stuff that I want to do."
Right, and I guess
Like,
there's
I'm going to do something that is going to be my job. It's going to be mission oriented and so on. And I'm not just going to accept just anything. She does accept her parents' BMW.
right, and I think like the shot like if we're looking for autobiographical elements, like Clerks, obviously it's all over the place. This is clearly a movie written by a guy who was working at a quick stop.
Right.
Um, in terms of Reality Bites, you do have this meta narrative, kind of like in the seventh Star Wars movie, where it's
Of which you've seen 20 minutes.
of which I've seen 20 minutes, but I've heard a lot from other people. uh, I'm taking off a Stan Rogowski's interpretation here, but so it's a movie about a guy who's worried about selling out because MTV wants to make his movie or something that looks like MTV. The Ben Stiller show is on MTV. Figures out there's a third way and that you can talk back to the network and get what you want. Has a happy ending. Embraces the quote unquote art person, which is Ethan Hawke. So the Winona Ryder character in this case would be Ben Stiller himself. And so we see the autobiographical element, or at least the overt one, is mostly there's not a lot of detail in it. Like he's kind of thinking about his career. And it could also be a meta narrative for making Reality Bites, right? It's like I'm selling out a bit to get this motion picture made, but I can still be cool so long as I don't believe in anything in my motion picture, which it doesn't really seem like he sincerely
And I can
engaged with anything in that movie.
and I can sneak in a few of the things that I really want to do, which is the little parodies, which are sort of like my show.
Right. The
That
show
got
that
canceled.
just got canceled, yeah.
What does this have to do with Star Wars?
Well, because the seventh Star Wars movie, isn't there like a point where, what's his face, the, not Adrian Brody, like 2010's Adrian Brody, the Sith Lord. The guy who's basically Darth Vader, but for the seventh movie.
Okay, yeah.
What's his, Adam Driver.
Adam Driver, yeah.
Yeah, the Adrian Brody for the 20. They're both very good actors. I'm not hating on anybody, but doesn't he say like something like, oh, like he's talking about not measuring up to Darth Vader at various points, like there's a lot of lampshade hanging.
Well, he wants to be like Darth Vader, his grandfather.
Right, the same way that the movie wants to be like A New Hope.
Well, yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah. There's lampshading there. Yes, yes. At one point, there. So in the original Star Wars, we have the Death Star, and they have to go destroy the Death Star. And so in this case, forget what they call the Rebel Alliance, the Rebellion, or I don't know what. But now they have to go after Star Killer Base, which is an entire planet. The Star Killer Base is an entire planet. And Han Solo says, "Oh, so like the Death Star but bigger." So yeah, there's lampshading there, but they know exactly what they're doing. But I still don't understand what you're trying to say.
oh, so like in Clerks, there's not much lampshade hanging. I guess it's like the kissing cousin of lampshade hanging is when you inadvertently make a movie about yourself or some experience you had.
Wait, so you're saying that the two movies are similar because there's lampshade hanging?
No, I'm saying that the two movies. I guess I was remembering the lampshade hang. They're similar movies insofar as they're movies that are concerned with the autobiographical details of what goes into making a movie. Like you have a lot of creator anxiety on the page
Okay.
about making the object that you're watching.
Okay.
So like J.J. Abrams is very worried about not being able to make a decent Star Wars movie, and that kind of comes through in the dialogue. Same thing with, or the screenwriter, whoever was responsible for that.
Because there's lampshade hanging in it? I mean, that says that about every movie that has lampshade hanging in it. I don't understand. Or maybe we should stop. I'm trying to get you to explain something for a movie you haven't seen.
Well, okay, I'm like drawing a parallel between. So you have the semi autobiographical element of Ben Stiller making a movie about making a movie
Right.
in the form of the quote unquote reality bites, and then you have Clerks, where there's a lot of dialogue about getting out of the gas station, doing something else with your life, which would be making Clerks for Kevin Smith.
Right.
Because I don't think he was ever thinking about going to college.
He
No,
went to
did go
film
to
school.
college, yeah.
He went to film school for a semester a year, and then he dropped out and went to make a movie instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is probably the smart move, because, like, film school... I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, I got a friend who did film school, and he's doing pretty good for himself. But,
Yeah.
like, if you just want to make a movie, like, go make a movie, because you're not necessarily going to recoup your money.
Which is Kevin Smith's message. If you want to make a movie, go make a movie.
Right.
I mean, this is what he says explicitly. He said that many, many times. So yeah.
Right.
Which
or
is a good lesson.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a lot of the power of Clerks is that it's, for being such a negative movie about, like, the pointlessness of existence. Also, the original ending makes a lot more sense through that lens, because so the original ending, for those who are not familiar, instead of just the store closing and Dante and Randall saying they're going to come back the next day after having kind of learned a lesson, Dante just gets shot. Like,
Yeah,
the guy comes in to rob the Quick Stop and shoots Dante, and he's just dead on the ground. It's the end of the movie.
Well, and then there's one more bit. Another customer comes in, and it's Kevin Smith.
Right.
But yeah, that's original ending. I'm very happy that was not the ending that was shown, and that I didn't actually see that ending until a few days ago.
In a weird way, though, now that I'm thinking about it, that's the happier ending.
Why?
Because the whole movie is about, like, he's wasting away his life, but he thinks there's nothing more to it. And then it's supposed to show kind of tragically, like, oh, okay, well, happier might not be the right word, but, like, he wasted the time. He should have been out doing what he wanted to do.
But there's that glimmer of hope. In the end, he recognizes after his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend, and for a long time Randall is saying, you can actually do more. You actually have to try to do more.
Right, but then he goes back into the store the next day, and then the next movie
we never see him go back into the store. It's still all the same day.
It's all the same day, but he says to Randall, like, see you tomorrow, and it's like, I'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, but he actually says he's going to start thinking about maybe... He's going to go and reach out to Veronica, the girlfriend that he basically just sort of kind of dumped.
Mm.
by trying to go back. All right, we've clearly come away with very different interpretations of the end. So you're saying he's finally being put out of his misery?
Uh, it just sort of like emphasizes that the time is valuable more than the final version, because the final version, I guess, like, and I think Kevin Smith sees something kind of eternal in these characters. Like, he goes back to them a lot, and they always need to be in roughly the same conditions for it to work.
Uh huh.
Like a movie called Dante and Randall Grow Up, and it's just like about them drifting, like Ghost World with Dante and Randall. Like, they just drift, they get separate girlfriends and jobs or whatever. They have kids, and then they see each other like every 5 years. That would not work. That would be the most depressing movie ever. But
Right.
if these guys are working at a fast food joint, not having made it anywhere 35 years later, I would watch that movie. I
Okay.
feel like, and so
I don't
there's
understand. We this was neither movie.
no, like Dante and Randall with Clerks, the I I guess like I always took away the implication that they never leave the store,
Okay.
and that he never actually does the thing. He's just sort of like come to an equilibrium for the day.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess in that way, it's kind of like it's very ambiguous, and you can take away a lot of different meanings from that ending.
But so why does getting shot make it a better ending?
I don't think it's a better ending. I think it makes more sense in terms of where the script is going,
Uh-huh.
because there's all these like references to Dante's Inferno,
Right.
up to and including Dante.
Right.
Uh, like the weird little title cards between the sequences.
Yeah.
There's a lot of implicated, and then that would kind of bring home. Although I guess like just having the Inferno references there on their own does that just fine
Dante
without
makes
like the one of them dropping dead.
Virgil, aka Randall,
Mm.
leads Dante out of the Inferno. He leads him out of hell and into purgatory, and then through purgatory, he hands him off to Beatrice to go into heaven. In this case, Beatrice being Veronica.
Huh. Okay. So it was actually based off of.
Well, I mean, this is my
Okay.
comparison. I don't know if the Dante's Inferno or Dante's Divine Comedy and Kevin Smith's Clerks exactly match. Those are sort of the.
I mean, there's
the
a lot
little
of
bits that I've
references.
seen.
Like, doesn't he call
Yeah.
one of the chapters Purgatorio or something like
Yep.
that? Yeah.
He does. Yeah.
And like the death thing, you get more of a purgatory vibe if he's going back into the store again the next day. He's like one of those people
Right.
trapped in the background of like an Edward Hopper or Van Gogh painting.
Yeah. So I see it as yeah, he's going he's still in purgatory. He's coming back tomorrow. He's still going to be in purgatory, but slowly he's going to continue the climb up Mount Purgatory, which in the Divine Comedy it's a mountain. And he's going to start that climb. He's going to do it slowly. It's going to be arduous, but maybe it's worth making that climb.
Yeah, and I guess this is a more optimistic. Did you ever see the whole shooting match
No.
by Eagle Pinnell? It's another like buddy movie about two guys that are both clearly alcoholics, but the director screenwriter isn't aware of it. And I found that out because Roger Ebert in his review of the movie says that he went to go talk to the guy after Sundance, and he's like, "You realize you made a movie about alcoholism?" And he's like, "What?" But anyway, it's a very affecting movie regardless. And yeah, you got these two guys. They do everything together, and then everything they do, all these like little schemes, like they try to invent some kind of special vacuum cleaner, and then it shows up on TV right when they're done with it. There's like a few things like that, and the movie just kind of ends with them drinking on a couch, and the idea is that they're going to be stuck in this kind of perpetual, kind of existential Groundhog Day.
Uh.
And that kind of reminded, although Clerks is a much funnier movie, certainly. But yeah, Clerks, I think, like in ways that didn't seem as easy to appreciate at the time, it is very much part of the larger U.S. independent film movement. I think in a way that a lot of those other early '90s Sundance movies aren't. I'm talking about like Reservoir Dogs or what's the other big, or like El Mariachi or something. Like they're kind of more coming from exploitation movies. Yeah, I think it holds up very well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, watching it now for probably the 20th time, and about halfway through, I turned to Dan and said, "Wow, after watching it for probably the 20th time, I'm still laughing out loud." There, that's my story.
I mean, I would say this was probably the artistic peak. I mean, I don't want to say like the artistic peak because he did good things after this, but I think it's his best film.
It's not to say that other movies that he's made weren't good, or at least entertaining, and have the same strength of dialogue. And that's not realistic
It's
dialogue.
his Citizen Kane, right?
It's
He hits
his...
it out of the park on the first try. There is no Rosebud. Everything's a lie. Go back to work.
All right. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
I don't know. Okay, favorite Kevin. Kevin Bacon, Kevin Kline, Kevin Smith, Kevin Sorbo.
Oh shoot! And there's another Kevin that who's no longer a favorite.
Yeah, Sorbo kind of like he's taken a hit in the market, the Kevin market.
No, no, I meant the Kevin in American Beauty.
Oh
Kevin
yeah,
Spacey.
yeah, Kevin Spacey.
Kevin
He took a
Spacey.
hit. Yeah,
Kevin Spacey is not a favorite. He may have been at one point, but he's not.
I
A
think
favorite
Kevin
anymore.
Smith is at the top of this pile.
Did you say Kevin Kline?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
mean like no hate on Kevin Kline, but I think Kevin Smith has won the battle. Kevin Bacon,
Kevin Bacon is at the center of the universe, at least the cinematic universe, right?
right?
But Kevin Smith has his own cinematic universe.
That he is the center of. So he's like an orbiting star.
Yeah. What is it? Was it the Red Bank? The Jersey verse?
Yeah, the Jersey verse or
Yeah.
something, or at least I've heard it referred to as the Jersey verse.
Yeah, yeah. Which he describes as being like a small universe, or I forget what he calls it,
Mm.
but all part of the same movie. Not the same movie, but
Well,
all
he-
part of the same.
He did that
space.
video where he's talking about a fan theory that his universe exists in the Jersey verse exists in the Marvel universe, and Degrassi exists in the Marvel universe because of his script existing in the Jersey or in the Marvel universe.
Oh, because which movie is it in which Stan Lee is reading the script for Mallrats?
Yeah, yeah. He's in the back of a bus. I forget what movie it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think Mallrats that he's reading because he appears in Mallrats.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, but he's reading the script to Mallrats in one of the Marvel movies in his cameo.
Okay. All right.
And that's what brings Mallrats into, and because it's a script and it's not like, it means that Kevin Smith exists in the Marvel universe because somebody had to write the script.
Right. And Stan Lee visited Kevin Smith at his house. They hung out.
They hung out a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was one of the best parts of that, like the reboot screening, was that like clip of Stan Lee at the end.
Yeah, that was the bit of a tearjerker.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
house like ate that up.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was Clerks and Reality Bites plus, but primarily Clerks and Reality Bites.
Yeah, they should have called it. You know what they should have called it, Beavis?
Which do they call it? Butthead. You like my butthead expression?
Yeah, we're doing some like high effort Beavis and Butthead voices
Yeah.
right now. They should have called it Reality Nuggets, like a piece of shit because it was crappy.
And on that note, this has been a nominee questionable. This has been a nominee questionable movies, and that's it. Take care, everyone.
All right, take care, everybody.